Are you still doing microservices? And this talk should not be taken too seriously like any other Ignite, so we'll just see where this develops and if you agree or disagree. But many times when we talk about microservices, we have something like this in mind. If you recognize this, this is the OpenTelemetry demo application that is intentionally like using all the technologies mixed together to make it more complex and interesting. But I feel like oftentimes this is what we are doing when we are trying to build our microservices to make it more complicated, which is great if you're doing OpenTelemetry or any observability, but might be complicated otherwise. And by the way, I'm cheating here. This is a double slide, so that's why we have some more time to discuss this one and see what is going on. So who thinks that a microservice architecture is the best thing since sliced bread? That is almost surprising, because I was expecting a few hands to go up, but everybody is very cautious now, okay? Let's see what we can do instead. Who thinks it's the worst thing since soap? If anybody still remembers that. Okay, there are two old people here who still remember soap. So distributed systems have not been a new thing. We just gave them fancier new names and hopefully learned from the past mistakes or not. And the obviously right answer is always like the best architecture is it depends, especially when you're consulting, then you start billing a lot, but the answer is always at first it depends, and then you can find a system that makes sense. Though we seem to have this weird situation where microservices are the main thing we discuss in terms of architecture, and it's just one of many architectural patterns that are actually out there. Though microservices seem to be the one thing that we always want to talk about. And I have the feeling we have this kind of like fetish in IT that we always talk about the deployment unit, because that's really what microservices are. It's the deployment unit that we roll out, and we are very fixed or focused on that architecture or that problem. And then we always have these endless discussions. What is micro in microservice, and should it be smaller or larger? And then we might develop to nano, pico, femto, atto, yocto, whatever services you want to have and how large you want to have them. But these are probably pointless discussions. I think the better thing to think about is does anybody know this post, Notes on Distributed Systems for Youngbloods? It's pretty much exactly 10 years old. It's from one of the original Twitter engineers describing all the problems they had back in the days. For those who have been around long enough, there was the fail whale a long time ago when Twitter was always down. And a lot of the lessons they learned are in this post. And I think that the number one there is distributed systems are different because they fail often. And it's just about all the things that can happen in a distributed or microservice architecture that make them different. And there are lots of points. I don't want to go through all of them. We don't have enough time. But it's a good reminder that many things are hard, and that you're also giving up on some attributes that you're kind of used to in the monolith. And I work for Elastic, the company behind Elasticsearch, which is very monolithic. And a few of the attributes, for example, that we really enjoy, that we don't want to give up, are that, for example, we have one version. There's always a fun one in microservices when you have 20 services and each one is deployed independently. What even is the version that is deployed right now? And it can get very hard to define that. You also give up on other attributes, like you only have one build and CI job, which, yes, if you want to have a large infrastructure team to set up your Jenkins or whatever jobs and keep them busy, have as many services and dependencies as possible. But it can get a lot simpler if you have fewer of those, and we have learned that the hard way as well. Another thing is, you don't need any discovery anymore if you only have one endpoint, and that endpoint kind of like works out the entire system rather than having 20 different endpoints and you need to orchestrate them together the right way. Finally, if you only have one process, you can monitor that very easily, or you can attach a debugger very easily to that one process and just see what's going on, or you can just tail one log file. Again, being a vendor for observability, it's great to have distributed systems and needing all the tooling, but you can also make your life harder. Though, of course, you're winning on other attributes if you do microservices. And I don't want to be mean, but I often have the feeling people like to do this CV-driven development, that you add all the new fancy technologies, and then you have a new service, and yes, the new service needs to use Rust, and it needs to use Red Panda as a queue or whatever. So you have all these technologies that you can mix together, and microservices give you a great window into that. So we can all keep doing that, and then we're happily doing microservices, I hope. Thanks a lot.